Assalamu alaikum. You're listening to Nurulhuda's review of the audiobook version of Spare, authored and narrated by Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, published by Random House Audio on 10th January 2023. It is 15 hours and 39 minutes long. Spare. There's a Hindi proverb, Ghar ka bhedi lanka dhai, which means that an insider who knows your secrets and weaknesses can cause great damage and destroy the kingdom and dynasty. That is so true in this book. Prince Harry spares no adjective in the English language to give vent to his feelings, which are mostly negative and sometimes positive about most of the people he chooses and the legal department allows him to include in this book. It's a shame that ghostwriter J.R. Moringer had to use a childlike tone and expression to verbalize them. For a while I thought a proper drinking game could be done over Harry's constant use of the word really. Then of course I thought a proper treasure hunt could be initiated on which new word he will use against his many enemies, villains and slighters. The book reads like a checklist of a scorecard, with Harry crossing all of the unmentionables one by one, starting from his poor school teachers and fellow students at Ludgrove, and ending for now, because I'm sure there will be a sequel, with William and Charles, especially these two, accusing and ridiculing them for not understanding or supporting him or his wife. His wife is the standout character from his autobiography. This memoir could also have been titled In Defense of Meghan, because even though she makes an appearance only in the third act of the book, titled Captain of My Soul, her imprint and shadow is there from the start. All roads lead to her, and then nowhere. 3 years after they step down as senior royal figures, I wonder what their trajectory, course of action, interview and book content would have been had they gotten their way in being half in and half out, if their desire to make money independently and show up for royal engagements every now and then had not been culled. Specifically, you wonder, would he have left or said or wrote anything if not for his wife's unhappiness and ultimatum, leading to his departure from the royal fold, surrendering his rightful place next to his brother and father on the Buckingham Palace balcony. This is not the stuff that a global leader maketh or writeth, but as part of a $20 million book deal and after becoming the fastest-selling non-fiction book of all time, it pays to be controversial and divisive. I just think he exchanged one cage for another. Competitive Pandas. To understand Harry, you have to wrap your head around the vast amounts of wealth and privilege that surrounds him and what he's born into. You can't. Most of it he takes for granted and tries to make you feel sorry for him by quibbling about what he doesn't have. It's hard to feel sorry for a guy who gets filtered water from the Scottish beat and creaking taps. He says about royals and their role, and I'm assuming he's talking about Hilary Mantel over here, going by his description, quote, "A writer called us pandas, expensive to conserve and ill-adapted to any modern environment, but aren't they interesting? Aren't they nice to look at?" This struck me as acutely perceptive and uniquely barbarous. We did live in a zoo, but I knew as a soldier that turning people into animals, into non-people, is the first step in mistreating them, in destroying them. Unquote. He calls into question the entire system that makes royals hostages to a work schedule, the media, and the public. He says, quote, "The court circular amplified, weaponized the feelings of competitiveness within my family. Some members had become obsessed, feverishly trying to have the highest number of official engagements recorded in a year. And they succeeded by including things that weren't strictly speaking engagements, public interactions like a blip that William and I wouldn't even dream including. The family tolerated, even leaned into the nonsense of the court circular, just like it had accepted the ravages and degradation of media. Fear. Fear of the public. Fear of the future. Fear of the day the nation would say, 'Oh, shut it down.'" Unquote. He even calls out what he refers to as collusion between one palace household and media against another household for better press. Quote, "Willy rang. Something had happened between him and Pa and Camilla. He was upset, seething actually. Pa and Camilla's people had planted a story or stories about him and Kate and the kids. He was not going to take this anymore. Give Pa and Camilla an inch and they take a mile, he said. They have done this to me for the last time. I got it. They had done this to me and Meg as well. But it wasn't them technically, it was the most gung-ho member of PA's communication team. He recounts a hunting trip to Germany in 2017, which was to cull wild boar and save farmer crops, which was turned by the British tabloids into him being a fat-bottomed baron who craved blood and trophies. He believes that story was given as a direct swap to get direct access to his father and also as a reward for suppression of stories on Camilla's son, who had been gallivanting, as he says, around London, generating tawdry rumors. He goes on to describe that this was happening way more regularly to William. He says, quote, Willy was justifiably angry. He had already confronted Pa once about this woman face to face. I had gone along for moral support. The scene took place at Clarence's house in Pa's study. Willy said to Pa, how can you be letting a stranger do this to your sons? Pa immediately got upset. He started shouting to Willy that he was paranoid. We both were. Just because we both were getting bad press and he was getting good press, that didn't mean his staff was behind it. But we had proof. Reporters inside newsrooms telling us that this woman was selling us out. Pa refused to listen. His response was churlish, pathetic. Granny has her person. Why can't I have mine? By Granny's person, he meant Angela. Willy said, what a rubbish comparison. Why would a grown man want their own Angela? But Pa just kept saying that, unquote. I think it's sad that Charles and William did not support his hacking lawsuit. It's his claim against The Sun and the Daily Mirror that they illegally intercepted his voicemail messages way back in early 2000s. But Harry's solution for the problem, cutting off all ties with Royal Rota reporters, was also outrageous. Vultures, Fiends. Harry passionately rages against the British tabloids and most of the British press, blaming them for his mother's death, misrepresenting or lying about him, and being racist and misogynistic about his wife. He has no problems or opinions with or about American tabloids. He also has no problems telling long and short tales about key royal figures in vengeful spite and to make money, knowing fully well that the British tabloids, the public and global audience is interested in what he has to say about them. It feels true when he laments that tabloids create a narrative, a story about a royal, and then weaponize that fiction to turn the public furor against that person. It also feels true that palace officials feed stories, pleasant or otherwise, about royals to the Royal Rota indirectly. But he hypocritically ignores how a royal's actual errant behavior and action, especially in public, should fill the front pages of tabloids. And it's ironical that he confirms most of the major things tabloids were insinuating all along. He's a brave man for going against certain editors and reporters of British media and highlighting his own family's alleged surrender to the tabloids, but his battle seems centered around securing his wife's happiness than his own. Of far greater significance is his claim against The Sun and the Daily Mirror that they illegally intercepted his voicemail messages way back in early 2000s phone hacking case, which he filed with 3 other claimants including Hugh Grant in 2019. Testimony was given by Harry in 2023. The Sun wrangled out of it simply over technicality. The case against Daily Mirror and Piers Morgan continues. Though hating Meghan Markle is $1 million business on both sides of the Atlantic, and one can forgive journalists and anchors working for sued media groups with an axe to grind, after all, those journalists and anchors have an earning to live, and need a job, of course. But what interests me more, and is a far more intriguing a phenomena than anything Harry says here, is the entire coterie of white middle-aged men and women, right-wing channels and internet trolls who first sharpened their claws during Harry's wife's brief 1.5-year stay in UK. That is the time when she first came on board, got married, and then stayed for a little while. At first, glowing in their admiration of the new member, they have blasted her and him since their decision to leave UK and British royal family with a ferociousness that is not reserved for any dictator, mass murderer, political figure, rapist, pedophile, priest, or Silicon Valley tycoon. I believe there is an insidious element at play. How dare a biracial woman stand up to us and not follow us? How dare she take away our power to decide and label away from us? And by us, I mean white middle-aged men and women who think whiteness gives them the privilege of voice, decision, and action. And they can't stand a woman of color, challenging or questioning that power or winning against it, as Meghan has done in court of law and for a while in court of public opinion. Indeed, no matter how greedy and self-serving she may or may not be, it gives these white men and women no right to constantly abuse her in the press and on TV and on their Twitter accounts and interviews. It almost seems like they cannot handle the changing of the guard, a shift in the world where Asian and brown and black people hold power and say, whether financial or political or cultural. The list of these whitey-tighties bring to mind Piers Morgan, Megyn Kelly, Tom Bower, Angela Levin, Lady Campbell, Maureen Callahan, Dan Wooten, Meghan McCain, Tucker Carlson, Kinsey Schofield, Jeremy Clarkson, Meghan's Mole, Royal News Network, etc., etc. Their bullying on cyberspace and TV is criminal behavior disguised as freedom of speech, especially in the case of high-profile liberal talk TV host Piers Morgan, who even grills US Republican presidential hopefuls on their opinion of Meghan and Harry going blue in the face. It's downright ridiculous. It doesn't help when people who were knighted by Charles or Queen Elizabeth II or those attending Camilla Parker Bowles' lunches speak against Meghan. It gives credence to a campaign against the couple by a conservative white people's club, a witch hunt, modern-day cyber lynching of a biracial woman who got her cake and is eating it too, and they cannot handle it. It also doesn't help when unfavorable stories about other key members are buried even in 2023. For example, Kate's parents' £2.5 million business debt bill and her sister's father-in-law's sex scandal. I am not even talking about Prince Andrew. Compare that with the incessant coverage and platform given to Thomas Markle and company. Angel, Martyr. Harry comes across as incredibly love-struck. There is nothing he wouldn't do or sacrifice for his wife. He would go to the ends of the earth to make her happy, even at the altar of his own name, title, job, family, country, legacy, future, dignity, self-worth, self-preservation, and logical opinion of others. He believes she deserves the moon and beyond. He truly believes she is the best thing to happen to him and to the royal family and to the world. Putting her on a pedestal with literal halo, he describes her as a woman of exceptional beauty, an angel, a martyr, the kindest, most generous, the one with the biggest heart, the most patient, confident, and wise woman that he's ever met, one who's full of life and positivity. He counts her multiple sacrifices that she's made for him. For example, she left her job, country, culture, family for him. Everything that goes wrong during her stay in UK, he believes, is everyone else's fault, not hers. And if she was ever at fault, it wasn't intentional and a big misunderstanding. She never apologized but made sure to get an apology from everyone else, and her husband strives hard to get it for her. Harry believes in everything she says and stands by her, and that has made all the difference in the royal world. Yes, I believe Meghan Markle is a brilliant, ambitious, clever, gorgeous woman who knows her worth, knows what she wants and how to get it, and doesn't play second fiddle, not even to her husband. She was given a $40 to $60 million tax-funded and Charles-funded joyous wedding with $2 billion in attendance via TV and on the streets. This was a sign of British royal family respecting her, investing in her, trusting her, and believing in her potential, not just as a family, but also as the firm. Even the press and tabloids played along. She was given high-profile patronages like the National Theatre and made Vice President of Commonwealth. As one half of a sexy, thrilling, and exciting couple, which William and Kate are not, she could have done so much with her role if only she had been patient, quietly working hard and playing the long game, supporting her husband, waiting for Queen to die and for Charles to ascend to the throne. Surely better residences, jewels, and privileges and adjustments would have come her way if she had built alliances within the royal fold and in the British press and tabloids like she has done in the US since her marriage. But that didn't happen. She didn't stay that long. Since none of us, the readers and listeners and watchers, know her, we can only surmise her true intentions from her behavior and action. Currently, she's in the US living as part owner of a $14 million Montecito mansion, bought at subsidized rate by Charles and Diana's money, owner of a cut-short $20 million Spotify deal, to be cut short $100 million Netflix deal. She has done endorsements of latte and stress patch companies with more to follow. She has made paid appearances on the speech and awards circuit. She has done puff placements in magazines and fashion shoots. She is co-owner of a multi-million-dollar non-profit Archwell Foundation and is represented by Ari Emanuel, the gold standard of agents who will certainly rain more money for her, establishing her lifestyle, fashion, perfume, skincare business with charitable hook. Think Reese Witherspoon, J.Lo, Jessica Alba, Gwyneth Paltrow, Angelina Jolie. The sky's the limit, even if WME parts ways with her. By all appearances, she's set for life, and that too in a town she's always been comfortable in and wanted to be a big player in. She'll always be a duchess, and her children, prince and princess. It's no accident that her mother, the graceful Doria Ragland, was rubbing literal shoulders with the Kardashians and presumably Amazon's Bezos, and then Meghan was doing the same thing at Beyoncé's concert a few days later in September 2023. That has WME written all over it. So she obviously has no problems following WME's instructions and rules, but she found a problem with everything royal. I think she fitted in that dull environment and thankless work. She couldn't own anything, not any castle or property or royal jewels. With a pittance as allowance, couldn't make millions or commissions or retain freebies, or promote brands, or continuously travel as a global superstar wearing the finest French fashion, or any fashion. Couldn't talk or flaunt her good fortune, and worst of all, was expected to be number two to her husband and her sister-in-law. Plus the tabloids picked on her every GUFFAW and amplified the strife within the brothers, blaming it on her. I don't know of any newly married woman who is so blindly loved and supported by her husband as she is, and has an all-expense-paid existence but is crying on the kitchen floor every time the husband comes home, declaring her unhappiness with royal life and British tabloids, and indeed having suicidal thoughts. No wonder Harry got scared. But it's hard to imagine such a proud, confident, determined, self-made woman crumble mentally in less than a year because she didn't get her way, with media, work, royal family, the weather. It's downright scary. I found it curious that Harry makes no mention of the accusation of racism that both threw in the Oprah Winfrey interview on the royal family. That is, when Archie's skin color was questioned by an unnamed royal, thrown as an atomic bomb in the Oprah Winfrey interview. He makes no mention of this in this book, nor does he name the royal member. Indeed, on this book's promotional tour earlier this year, Harry categorically denied that he or his wife had accused royals of anything racist. He blamed the press and tabloids for twisting their words. He said the royal family suffered from unconscious bias and were not racist. I also don't understand why Harry and Meghan insisted on her going to Balmoral when Queen was on her deathbed, and why they made an issue over it, an issue reproduced in the book, and why Harry did not get her condescending mock courtesy to the Queen edited out of the Netflix show that aired a few months later in December 2022. Certainly, Meghan could have done so. It was all so disrespectful and unnecessary. It also looked like bad manners when she didn't attend Charles's coronation, the only father who stood by her on her wedding day. But whatever. Maybe she didn't enter the royal family to stay. Maybe she was driven out. Either ways, she doesn't care, and that bothers her haters. You know, when listening to this audiobook, you can't help but think, when Diana did Andrew Morton's book or the Martin Bashir BBC interview, she had genuine trouble in her life after serving the crown dutifully for 12 to 14 years. This tale of bridesmaids' dresses, Markle letter, skin colors, and getting two brothers riled up over her seems put on, a great con of sorts. I will, however, read the memoir Meghan produces after her divorce. Mummy, Pa, and this woman. There is a prize for disclosing the sentiments of a 12-year-old walking behind his mother's coffin, and after pocketing an installment from $20 million three-book deal, Harry spills the beans. But with the help of a $5 million advance ghostwriter, he sounds like just another grief-stricken bystander, voyeuristically milking his mother's death for the right price. But what is shocking is the loneliness that he says he felt. With so many paternal aunts and uncles, not one of them gets mentioned as saying anything comforting to him or to William at Balmoral or at the Abbey or later. And that is so stark, so shocking. Or maybe it's just another one of those recollections may vary things. Harry is gruesome in his description of Charles as an absentee father who he says didn't hug him after breaking the news of Diana's death in his room and left him in his room alone. It seems Charles cared as a father, but not enough. But what stands out even more is how little Harry thinks of him in any case. Charles was a trendsetter on organic farming, climate change, and sustainable architecture long before the world caught on, but Harry has no interest in his work, nor has he learnt anything from him. What a missed opportunity. As for other dirty laundry that has been given a good wringing over here, William, Harry reveals, squabbles with Charles all the time. Any other dirty laundry that needs a good wringing? Harry and William both don't like Camilla Parker Bowles. No surprise there. Harry refers to her as this woman, and both believe she and Charles are planting negative stories about them in the press. When you're listening to this passage, you wonder, are they referring to the Rose Hanbury rumors? One also wonders what both brothers, the heir and the spare, must have thought about and on the coronation of Camilla Parker Bowles in June 2023 at the Abbey, the venue of Charles and Diana's wedding, which Camilla attended with her son, and the venue of Diana's funeral. What the heir and the spare must have felt when everyone bowed their heads at the newly anointed queen, despite her unpopularity and questionable suitability for the crown, not being mother of the next king and all that. But for all the bricks and stones thrown her way through the decades, this was her prize, and Charles gave it to her. Harry may think he's like his mother and that in supporting and protecting his wife he's honoring his mother, a space not given to Diana by Charles, but he forgets there's a bit of Charles in him too, for putting everything on the line for a controversial woman and aligning his destiny with hers. Willy. Royal Kane and Abelesque here, courtesy Moringer's sharp use of petty sibling rivalry as a symbol of bigger power struggle between what monarchy is and what it should be, if it should continue to be at all. The book starts with Harry waiting for a showdown with Charles and William after Prince Philip's funeral and ends with this showdown too. The entire passage reminded me of the film High Noon 1952's gunslinging battle between Gary Cooper and the bandits, where Cooper's sheriff has the choice to either face the enemy or run away with his wife. Gary Cooper chooses to stay. Harry chooses to stay and face the enemy too, having already left with Meghan a year ago. To be clear, Harry thinks he's the hero here. William is targeted by him, the cynic in me believes, because he's the future king. Charles and Camilla are a bus stop whistle tour at the most. The real long ride and toughest challenge is going to be William and Kate's, who are already struggling to define their roles as modern royals on the mountain of legacy of colonialism, changing times, the fractured relationship with Harry, a series of badly advised tours, their whiteness, and robotic body language. The British press and tabloids may write stories on how sad Charles is or how glamorous Camilla looks, glorifying them or giving them a nice, fluffy profile. The real deal is the general public just don't care about them. But the power of the institution and tradition and support from media is such that the farce goes on. Doing everything right by the royal playbook, Kate looks plastic, factory assembled, as lovely as she may be. William comes across as arrogant, hot-headed, elitist, perhaps unfairly so. They are in their early 40s and already look like well-maintained relics in a gilded museum. Maybe someday Harry will visit them and say, "Wow, gorgeous." For anyone who wants to know the reason for this reference, should go and check out the memorable quotes given under the review on Goodreads site. Thank you for listening.